it's Aaron, and today we're going to talk a little bit about something that I'm surprised that I haven't actually touched on yet. It's called democratic confederalism, and it's kind of a form of governance that anarchists are able to use, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, so let's get started. Okay, so this is probably going to be a fairly easy and quick video. First of all, to understand democratic confederalism, you have to understand confederalism, or a confederacy. Now, a confederacy isn't necessarily a bunch of rowdy Americans trying to keep slaves. A confederacy is basically when a bunch of different groups confederate together as one single group. So a bunch of different groups all link together as a single group. That's basically what a confederation is. Now, a confederacy can have a hierarchical structure in many different ways, but the way that anarchists use it is a form called democratic confederalism. And it was originally created by a man named Abdullah Öcalan. He was able to create this idea through studying the works of Murray Bookchin and a lot of other people, and he was basically able to create an anarchist form of government, or libertarian socialist, depending on how you look at it, and it was actually implemented and used in real life in Rojava, Syria. Okay, so enough backstory. How exactly does democratic confederalism actually work? Well, basically it works like this. Communities all individually elect their own administrative councils. So a small community could be just your entire block, it could be a little bit larger than that, it could be an entire district. Depending on how large you make your community, that depends on how big the council that you would elect would be. You could have a set number of council members or whatever it is, and you would basically use that council not to create laws or create rules or anything like that. They are basically elected to do the bureaucratic work of the government. So some people who want to do the job would be put into a pool, and people would be able to elect those individuals based on certain different things, specifically ranked choice voting or liquid democracy, that sort of thing. Now, the people themselves are the ones that make the decisions, and they vote on policy rather than people. Then those people who are within the administrative council will enact what the people have asked for. So that means that most decisions are actually made on the local level, on the individual level, between your neighbor, between people within your community, your block, your neighborhood, whatever exactly it is. And you would use forms of democracy, like I said, like direct democracy, liquid democracy, vote weighing, ranked choice voting, that sort of thing. And that allows you, as the individual community member, to actually have a say in what goes on within your community. It's not all dictated to you from far, far away. They can't just decide to plop a Walmart right in the middle of your area without consulting you first. It's your decision, basically. And also, Walmart probably wouldn't exist. We'll talk about that in another episode, but for now, we'll just stick to this. So, essentially, your community would link together with all of the other communities within your city or township or area, and they would create a confederated council. So, the same as before, there are elected individuals that are put into positions that work as administrators within that administrative council that do basically the bidding of all of the individuals within that entire city or township, or even if you want to branch out larger, in the country or nation, whatever it is. Again, none of the people in that administrative council have any sort of superpower or any sort of special abilities or control over anything. They just simply administer the ideas and proposals that were brought up by the people themselves through their councils or whatever it is. So basically, you would have this interconnected network, a web, if you will, of groups that are able to work together as a unified force to basically control an entire country or an entire nation or possibly the entire world if you wanted to go global with the thing. It essentially works as an inverted hierarchy where the people at the bottom have the absolute most say in what goes on within their world, and everything else kind of branches out. And as things get more complicated, it involves more people. And luckily, more people means that there are more individuals that are able to deal with those complications. It actually works a whole lot better than a top-down system system where you only have one specific group that dictate everything to the entire country, and maybe we'll give individual spots, like maybe a state or an entire city, say over what they can do in a small sense. But in regards to everything else, the state necessarily tells the rest of the country what to do. And that leads to a lot of different problems. If you don't have people in the areas that they are in making decisions for that area, then you're just not going to have a full understanding of how to actually provide for that community and give them the things that they actually need. It's an old saying, but the people themselves are the ones that know what they need. Some bureaucrat or dictator 100 miles away has no fucking idea. Another aspect of democratic confederalism is the idea of ownership by use. Basically, there is no more private property. All property is owned by whoever needs the land and whoever happens to be using it at the time. So it's basically property that's owned and controlled by the people who are there, by the people that are using it. So if you work at a shoe factory or a car manufacturing plant or whatever it is, then you will be part owner of that car manufacturing plant. You get to own and control the land, resources, and equipment that you're working with. Individuals are granted usage rights to buildings, land, and infrastructure, but not the right to sell and buy on the private market or convert them to private enterprises. So as long as you're working there, you are part owner, part in control of everything that you are doing. But you can't make it something that's privatized. You can't go and sell your goods on the privatized market because you yourself don't own all of that. Essentially, the community is in the hands of the people within the community itself. And that allows for a system where the property is not collectivized or privatized. It is common. So all of the land, all of the resources, all of the machinery, the trucks, the cars, the airplanes, the trains, the automobiles, and all of the everything isn't owned by a specific group. It isn't owned by an individual. It's common property. Whoever happens to need it at the time and whoever happens to be using it is the one that owns it. So to recap, like I was saying at the beginning, you have individual communities that basically elect administrative councils that do not make decisions but only enact the decisions that people make. Those communities then confederate or link together with other communities to create a larger confederacy or confederation. Those confederated councils work together using bottom-up democratic hierarchical structures that are flat and not top-down hierarchical structures that work like a dictatorship like we have today. And property is no longer privatized nor collectivized, but it is common property that everyone is able to use, and so long as you are using it, you are the one that owns and controls that property. So that's my show. My name is Aaron. Thank you very much for watching. If you do get a chance, please check out all the links in the description box below. Hit that little bell button because they're not going to tell you when I release a new video, and make sure you're subscribed because they're unsubscribing people every single day. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.